This is the newsroom for today, Thursday, January 28, 2021. We're broadcasting to you on E1 Scar TV, NTN, and Tarzi TV in Bartica. In the headlines, Guyana has rejected fresh claims by Venezuela that the Guyanese fishing crew detained there had a protected hammerhead shark among their catch.
But we've not heard anything from the crew with regards to that.
The government parliamentarians used their one-seat majority to vote against what they say is a poorly drafted marijuana bill by the opposition and have since thrown their support behind amendments piloted by the Attorney General Anil Nandlal.
Now that you are in the opposition, you now want to piggyback on the PPP and you want us to pass the bill for you. Well, we are not going to do that for you.
An early morning fire destroys the house of a teacher and her family. Inmates at 3 prisons across Guyana test positive for COVID-19. In tonight's feature, we highlight a classy ambience and a contemporary fusion menu at a spanking new RS53 Resto Bar and Lounge. And in sport, Guyana Jaguar skipper Leon Johnson believes fitter and mentally prepared teams will start well in the Super 50, and cricket development at West Demerara Secondary School receives massive boost. With the news, I'm Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for joining us. We started by telling you that the arguments advanced by Venezuela that they have detained 2 Guyanese registered vessels and its Guyanese crew because they were found fishing in that country's waters may not be the only reason why the fishermen have not been released despite mounting international pressure. According to new revelations on the men's continued detention, Venezuela is claiming that they had among their catch a protected species of fish which can see them being prosecuted. Guyana has rejected this argument, maintaining that the men were apprehended in Guyana's waters and any issues regarding the cargo on the vessel would be one for Guyana to address. Kurt Campbell joins us now.
The 12 Guyanese fishermen detained for a week now in Venezuela are being accused of having among their catch the protected species of the hammerhead shark, a fish that is prohibited from being trawled. When approached by the newsroom at Parliament on Thursday, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation UTAD said his Venezuelan counterpart made the claim during a virtual meeting on Monday. Todd said although the ministry is in contact with the detained fishermen, he has not yet inquired whether this is true. He said his work is centered on the release of the men and their vessels. He insisted that they were apprehended in Guyana's waters.
When I spoke with the foreign minister, he did mention that. But we've not heard anything from the crew with regards to that. I think it was the hammerhead shark. That is, yes.
Have anyone from your ministry or the owners of the vessels been able to speak with the men themselves?
Yes, we were in contact with them every day.
And that question wasn't put to them?
About the
hammerhead?
No, we didn't. We're dealing with the release of the crew and vessels. We're not dealing with the catch. The catch has been. It was.
Help if you know that they're breaching.
At the end of the day, the vessels were apprehended in our territory. That is a matter for us by law, not for the Venezuelans. So we don't want to be distracted. Let's stay focused. We need to have the vessels, crews released as soon as possible. Forget about the catch for now. We can deal with that subsequently.
Todd said Guyana continues to maintain that it is illegal to have the men detained and called again for the release of the vessels as soon as possible. The latest news out of the neighboring country indicates that the men could remain in detention for another 45 days pending an investigation. Meanwhile, Todd said his ministry is trying to ascertain the veracity of reports that a 3rd Guyanese registered vessel has been detained in Venezuela.
We're still trying to confirm the report. We were made to understand that a 3rd vessel was apprehended, and I'm yet to receive additional details. When we get that, we'll put a statement out.
On January 21, 2020, the 2 vessels were intercepted by Venezuelan naval vessel Comandante Hugo Chavez while operating off the coast of Winey Point in Guyana's waters. Those detained are Tony Garway, Errol Gardner, Erland Roberts, Christopher Shaw, Sherwin O'Neill, and Randy Henry from the Seawolf crew. Those detained from the Lady Nayara crew are Richard Ramnarayan, Ramlakan Kamal, Nick Raguber, Javin Boston, Michael, and Joel Joseph. The Venezuelan minister assured Guyana that the crew members are being treated with the utmost respect for their human rights, even as he insisted that the men were in waters belonging to Venezuela. Guyana continues to reject this. It is noted that this latest hostility follows closely on the heels of a decree recently issued by Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, which purports to establish a new maritime territory of Venezuela called the Territory for the Development of the Atlantic Facade, encompassing Guyana's territorial waters, the exclusive economic zone, and continental shelf, as well as its land territory west of the Essequibo River. And Guyana has emphatically condemned this Venezuelan decree as a flagrant violation of its sovereignty and sovereign rights and of fundamental rules of international law.
Thank you, Kurt. A primary school teacher, her husband, and 2 young children, ages 10 and 3, are now homeless after a fire of unknown origin destroyed their 2-story house at Good Intent, West Bank, Demerara. Danica Paul visited the family and filed this report.
The fire, which started sometime after 3 hours on Thursday while the family was asleep, has left them devastated as they now suffer millions of dollars in losses. The house is not insured.
It was approaching to my room, which is the first room in the house, and as I saw the big flame, I just was able to grab my daughter and I ran out of the house from the back door.
Joseph explained that her husband and their 10-year-old son were asleep in the room at the back of the house, and it was only when she safely made it outside that she realized they were still in the house.
It will impact her gravely because all of our records has been burned. She computer with all the information, classes and assignments that she's doing at UGT, everything gone down the drain. We have no track, nothing where we could get them back. All my son's schoolwork that he done, worksheet and everything born, every single thing.
Joseph, who is a final year student pursuing a degree in education at the University of Guyana, is now unsure as to how she would continue her studies.
You ever collect nothing, all the money, everything left. We could just collect my son and beat out to run down the back step, me fall down the step all with the amount of smoke was in the house.
While the Guyana Fire Service arrived promptly on the scene and managed to extinguish the fire, the house and everything inside were already destroyed. However, the husband, who is a taxi driver, managed to save their motor car before any damage was done to the vehicle.
I had the car underneath here when the fire started. After we run out from there, we had to push the car out from the yard before the car catch fire too.
That was the only thing you were able to save?
The car alone, yeah. You had to break out the gate because the keys was in my pocket and all, everything just burned up.
As the fire service continues its investigation to ascertain the cause of the fire, the family of 4 is unsure where they can now call a home. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Danica Paul.
We tell you now that a 25-year-old woman and her mother were accosted and robbed by a lone gunman on Wednesday night, shortly after they left church and were making their way home at Concrete Strip, Rhymesek, West Coast, Demerara. Newsroom understands that Ann McDonald was robbed of $60,000 in cash and one black Samsung J7 cellular phone valued $80,000, while the gunman beat her mother in the head with the gun. Police said that McDonald and her mother left church at around 19:30 and went to the public road to get a minibus. They caught a minibus and exited at Rhymesek Public Road. McDonald took out her cellular phone to use her as a flashlight while her mother was walking behind her. McDonald told the police that she turned around and saw an unidentifiable male who whipped out a handgun and told them both to remain quiet. He relieved the young lady of the cash and phone and in the process dealt a blow to the mother's head with the said handgun. The suspect then escaped in a silver grey Fielder wagon. Police investigations are ongoing. As a result of a poor response to its mobile COVID-19 testing unit, the Ministry of Health is reviewing its strategy on how to get persons to test for the deadly virus. The units were introduced to ramp up screening and testing and to effectively clamp down on the spread of the virus by having more people know their status. The Subject Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, spoke about the issue during his daily COVID-19 update on Thursday.
The testing sites are primarily the fixed sites that we have at hospitals and the 2 additional sites that we have in Region 4, which is at Horstelling and Paradise. We have, from time to time, utilized a mobile service, but unfortunately, when we send these mobile service into the community, not a lot of people would respond. In some cases, for the whole day, we probably get like 14, 15 tests done. So that's something, it's still an option, but we haven't been using it because when we go into the communities, a lot of people are not coming to be tested. So we probably would have to rethink that option. So one of the other ways is that if people present with symptoms, then we can probably do the rapid test, which is more sensitive when you have a symptomatic patient. So when we did a correlation between the symptoms and the testing, we get a better chance of success using the rapid test in those circumstances. So that's an option that we can employ, and right now we have our team that is reviewing some of our testing protocols to ensure that it's constantly in compliance with what the WHO has been advocating and guiding us to do.
When the news returns, the government parliamentarians used their one-seat majority to vote against a poorly drafted marijuana bill by the opposition and Caneville residents to benefit from technical and vocational training. Stay tuned, you're watching The Newsroom. This is The Newsroom. An opposition-sponsored bill brought to the National Assembly by Member of Parliament Sherrod Duncan to allow for persons carrying 500 grams of marijuana or less to be spared jail time did not make its way past the first reading on Thursday, as the government pointed out several consequential errors in the bill which conflict with the current laws. Kurt Campbell has our story.
After close to 4 hours of debate on a motion to have the National Assembly entertain a bill which seeks to amend the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act, it all came down to a single vote where the government used its majority in the House to have it thrown out. Tensions escalated as the two sides engaged in fiery exchanges on the sensibleness of the bill when placed in stark contrast to another bill laid in the National Assembly by Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal. Sherrod Duncan's bill had proposed increasing the decriminalization amount for marijuana drastically from 15 grams to 500 grams, something the government questioned and said it could not support. The government MPs all threw their support behind the Nandlal piloted bill, which he read for the first time on Thursday, and asked that it be sent to a special select committee for further consultation, even as he accused the opposition of failing to consult before bringing their bill. Nandlal said the opposition bill has several consequential mistakes in that it failed to amend the principal law to make it more comprehensive and fluid.
And now that you are in the opposition, you now want to piggyback on the PPP and you want us to pass the bill for you. Well, we are not going to do that for you. We don't want on this side for anyone to feel that we are using our majority and our numerical strength to vote down motions or bills or any policy. We are going to show reason why. And that is what every member on this side has been doing from the beginning of the debate.
According to Nandlal, the opposition proposed to amend the bill to allow for possession of 500 grams of marijuana to be legal, but failed to amend it to allow for usage to be legal.
So it can be lawful to you have the cannabis, according to them. It can be lawful to have it, but you can't smoke it. You can't inhale it. You can't light it because they didn't amend the other section. It's still an offense to smoke. Yes. It's still an offense.
Delivering the opening speech in a lineup of MPs to advance the government's argument, Minister of Education Priya Manichan said the opposition proposed amendment to the Principal Act was the epitome of sanctimonious gangsterism. She pointed out that the Sherrod Duncan piloted bill was identical to another bill drafted by attorneys Mark Waldron and Nigel Hughes. The only difference is that the previous bill asked for the removal of jail time for persons found with 200 grams of marijuana, while this bill increases that ceiling to 500 grams.
This gentleman is asking for 500. He does not. We know they have problems with mathematics and weighing. 500 grams would give you 30 approximately. Could be more. 30 spliffs, 30 joints, 30 blunts, 30 joints the size of a cigarette. You know, you're saying it's a small joint. Maybe yours will look like a much bigger one, in which case it will give you 15. Whatever it is. I may be speaking from experience, and if I am speaking from experience, I do so proudly, without apology, for making a private decision. Why are you attempting to shame people who use marijuana through me? Through me. You are dishonest. Mr. Speaker, 30 joints like this would make everybody in this house high for a few days.
The government bill proposes counseling and community service for persons found with between 15 to 30 grams of marijuana instead of mandatory jail time. Duncan, in wrapping up the debate, accused the government of hijacking the APNU-AFC move to free up the weed.
And similarly, Mr. Speaker, they are stealing this initiative by the APNU-AFC to reduce the custodial sentence and free up the weed, because that is who they are. They steal projects and ideas consistently.
He said the opposition had relied heavily on the Caribbean Community CARICOM report from the Regional Commission on Marijuana, which had held widespread consultations in Guyana and across the region. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom.
Now, numerous complaints about robbery and other crimes in the community of Caneville on the east bank of Demerara has pushed the government to intervene and offer technical and vocational training programs for the youths. The Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton, visited the community on Wednesday, where it was revealed that the high crime rate has also resulted in residents being discriminated against and denied basic services such as health and security. The training programs being rolled out by the Board of Industrial Training aims to change this, as it would provide direct employment for the youths. Isnella Patwa reports.
In an effort to keep the young people of Caneville on the east bank of Demerara engaged and employed, the Ministry of Labour and the Guyana Police Force will soon start a number of technical and vocational training programs. The programs are all free of cost and include mechanical and electrical engineering, welding and fabrication, as well as cake decorating and catering and agro-processing, among others. In order to be certified after, the Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton, said the Board of Industrial Training is tasked with executing, evaluating and monitoring the programs.
The program is more than just training. It is trying to empower people. And whatever money we pay, in my view, it must revolve in the community. So that is an important factor in all the things we will do going forward. So we don't impose anything on no community. It is you that must say to us what you think might be the best training needs in your community. And we say to youth group, sports group, church groups, MDC group, CDCs, whatever, sit down with BIT and put a program together.
It was further revealed by residents that due to the high crime rate, they are being stigmatized and discriminated against when visiting health centers, police stations, and even when applying for jobs.
I'm originally from Barbados, but I'm living in Caneville. And that is for the past 20 years, at least from the time Caneville started. I was here from the squatting of it, okay? And I see a lot of youngsters that grow up, they fall about friends or companies and they just fall be on the other side. There's plenty of reason for this. One of the reasons is that we would need some community development, like some training programs, recreational activities and such in this area, which they were able to get some of these youths, okay, to keep them in a stable place.
My name is Nigel Mendanza. I'm living here in this community for the past 15 years. In 2002, I live in here. I'm living in here since Inesa was plot of mud, right? So far in the community, we have a lot of activity that we don't go on. What I can see that training for the youths, them we got like football, cricket. You know, who could know for do cooking, you teach them about cooking, you teach them sewing, and these things. Let it come off for some of these things that they were on the mentality, what they're on. Let it come off for these things that because years ago, when Caneville was Caneville, it wasn't like that. You could go out and come back home and reach home okay. But now you cannot do that. You gotta leave somebody home and then you go out to work and come back and everything is okay.
Meanwhile, the minister explained that trainees will be given a stipend throughout the programs and they can also be involved in more than one program. Programs will also be available during the day as well as during the night. The residents now have to recommend trainers from the community and also identify a place for the training. According to Minister Hamilton, this initiative will extend to communities across Guyana and will also cater to retired persons. Residents further called for a recreational facility, a school, a health center, and a police outpost. In response, Minister Hamilton promised the residents to take up their concerns with the Ministers of Local Government and Regional Development, Culture, Youth and Sport, and Home Affairs. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanella Patwo.
We tell you now that a Georgetown woman was on Wednesday arrested after she was caught attempting to ship cocaine from Georgetown to Brooklyn, New York. The parcels of cocaine, which amount to 534 grams, were found hidden in the false bottom of a box of snacks that 30-year-old Petrina Pilgrim of North Road, Border, Georgetown, attempted to ship abroad. According to a statement from the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit, the box was intercepted before it was loaded onto a flight at the Eugene F. Corai International Airport at Ogle. The box contained packets of local snacks, including coconut biscuits, mitai, chicken foot, and a packet of uncooked vermicelli. Several persons have since been questioned. Still ahead on the newsroom, inmates at 3 prisons across Guyana test positive for COVID-19, and a classy ambience await Guyanese and foreigners alike at a spanking new RS-53 Resto Bar and Lounge. This is the newsroom. A number of prisoners at the Lusignan prison on the east coast of Demerara, the Timeri prison on the east bank of Demerara, and the New Amsterdam prison in Region 6 have tested positive for COVID-19. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony on Thursday revealed that 4 prison officers at New Amsterdam also tested positive for the virus. The minister assured that the prisoners and officers are in isolation and are also asymptomatic.
Well, we've had cases in the prisons, as you know, but these have been primarily at Lusignan. And last year, September, we did have a number of cases that would have occurred at Lusignan. Today, we have a few cases at Lusignan, but those cases having been tested and identified, we have now isolated them in a special part at the Lusignan prison. We have also, the team in Region 6 have also conducted testing for the prison officers in New Amsterdam, and 4 of them have tested positive. And so those 4 officers have been put in home isolation. We have also had 1 prisoner in New Amsterdam who have tested positive, and that person has been placed in isolation as well. We've had a number of cases at Timeri. We've had 33 prisoners who tested positive at Timeri, and those persons have also been put in a special area where they're isolated from the rest of the prison population. So they're going to be there. We have the medical staff from the prison services who are monitoring them. And most of them are asymptomatic, so once they go through that 10-day period, at the end of which they will be discharged from isolation.
Some $4.4 billion will be spent on infrastructural development works for several housing areas on the east coast of Demerara, where lands have already been allocated, the Minister of Housing and Water, Colin Crowell, disclosed on Wednesday during an outreach to Annandale. Isnel Patwa reports.
Last year, the Ministry of Housing and Water distributed house lots to communities along the east coast of Demerara, namely Strathspey, Blading Hall, Vigilance, Annandale, Le Bon Intentioned, and Commons Lodge. These areas are now being developed by the ministry so persons can start their building process. Minister of Housing and Water Colin Crowell, during a recent visit to Annandale, revealed that over $4 billion on infrastructure works is being expended in these communities. The work, which falls under the ministry's 2021 work program, includes the construction of roads and drainage channels and access to water and electricity.
It is intended this year that we'll be spending $4.4 billion on infrastructure work alone for those communities on the East Coast for which we have made allocations for house lots.
According to the minister, the government remains committed to clearing the backlog of house lot applications in the system and are also looking to acquire more lands for development.
Once you are in the system, you need not worry. But there's one aspect that I notice. Sometimes you change your contact number and then you don't necessarily inform CHPA. If there's a change in your address or a change in your contact information, please ensure that that information is shared with CHPA so that they can update it.
During the meeting with the minister, residents were also able to raise other concerns such as encroachment and squatting. Also in attendance were representatives from the Ghana-Watt Incorporated and the ministry's Community Relations Department. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanela Patwo.
Now, the government is looking to amend the Public Loans Act and the External Loans Act in a bid to increase the current ceiling for domestic and international borrowing. The increase in domestic borrowing is pegged 3 times above the current ceiling, a move that the Finance Minister, Dr. Ashley Singh, said is needed to remedy the situation that the People's Progressive Party inherited when it came into office in August 2020. Kurt Campbell reports.
With the current threshold for domestic and international borrowing set in the early 1990s, the government is looking to raise the borrowing ceiling to allow it to cater to Guyana's growing economy and at the same time remedy a prevailing situation where the current law does not offer enough fiscal space for Guyana's growing domestic debt and the disbursement of an increasing amount of foreign loans. Minister of Finance Dr. Ashley Singh on Thursday laid in the National Assembly an amendment to the External Loans Act proposing an increase from the current $400 billion to $650 billion. In addition, Dr. Singh is also looking to increase the domestic ceiling from $150 billion to $500 billion with an amendment to the Public Loans Act. Dr. Singh explained that this is in a bid to regularize several issues unearthed after assuming office in 2020, as well as to facilitate new financing for a transformative development agenda.
Given the situation that we inherited, there would not have been, first of all, in the case of the domestic debt ceiling, it would have been exceeded at the moment we came into office. There would have been no room to borrow. And on the external side, there would have been room, but there would have been relatively modest room if one were to assume that the existing portfolio of external debts were to be exhausted. So, I mean, if I might summarize all of that, the main 2 issues underlying the increases to the debt ceilings are, first of all, to regularize the situation that we inherited, and secondly, to ensure that there's room to finance the development agenda going forward.
A statement from the Ministry of Finance noted that these revisions to the external and domestic debt ceilings do not threaten Guyana's long-term debt sustainability, given the sustainable economic progress made since the early to mid-1990s, when the ceilings were last revised, and the country's robust economic outlook. At the time of the last revision in 1991, Guyana's external debt ceiling was set at more than 100% of GDP. In contrast, the new proposed external debt ceiling would amount to less than 60% of GDP using the latest 2020 GDP estimates. On the domestic side, when the last revision was done in 1994, Guyana's domestic debt ceiling was set at almost 200% of GDP. In stark contrast, the revised domestic debt ceiling would amount to less than 50% of GDP. Dr. Singh explains that the comparisons clearly depict that Guyana's current debt carrying capacity could safely accommodate the proposed ceiling increases.
Having come back into office, we maintain the same very, very strong commitment to ensuring that we manage the fiscal operations of government and that we manage the public finances in a way that will ensure that we stay on a path to sustainable public finances, to sustainable indebtedness, but at the same time that we are able to invest in the areas that are required.
Singh said the latest move is consistent with the People's Progressive Party administration's track record of prudent debt management in the course of safeguarding Guyana's long-term fiscal and debt sustainability. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom.
A classy ambience, contemporary fusion menu and exemplary customer service await Guyanese and foreigners alike at a spanking new RS53 Resto Bar and Lounge. With the offer of great dining being the hallmark of its formation, RS53 is tipped to add a refreshing touch to the restaurant industry while providing employment for some 30 Guyanese. While private tasting has been ongoing for the past 2 weeks, the doors to this modern facility would officially be open to the public on February 10 in time to welcome those in love on Valentine's weekend. I'm here at the spanking new Amazonia Mall at Providence on the east bank of Demerara. While many global franchises will be housed here, a homegrown one is touted to be the newest hotspot in Guyana. We're talking about RS53 Resto Bar and Lounge, owned and operated by the former Guyana and West Indies cricketer Ramnaresh Sarwan. Let's take a look at what's happening on the inside.
A few years ago, I was involved in partnership with having a restaurant in Canada. Unfortunately, things didn't turn out the way I wanted to. However, I took the opportunity to reflect whilst I was playing cricket, and I always wanted to have my own restaurant. It took a while, but it's now a reality. Is that you need to have a lot of time and you got to be hands-on with a business like this. And of course, at that time when I was playing, I couldn't do that. Now I have much more time on my hand. Of course, I've got 3 young kids who also need my time, so I would have to try and balance that as well. Well, I think it's no secret that hospitality has been our biggest challenge in Guyana, and that is something that we want to change. Of course, I think we will have our own challenges, but presently we're going through a training program with our staff, and hopefully they will be able to get as much information as they can, and that will allow them to be able to be good at what they will be doing. But we are very much aware that we may have challenges, but I think the key for us to ensure that we provide good service to people, but most importantly, food also needs to be good, and I'm looking forward to Chef Baby preparing the food for us. We've had a tasting, and so far we've gotten really good feedback, but it's important that we try and set ourselves our own standard. It's not a matter where we're competing with people, it's just we're trying to set our own standard and ensure that we keep a very high standard and be accountable. I've been advised also we should have continuous training where you retrain your staff every 3 to 4 months, and those are things that I'm learning on the job. So those are standards we put in place, and hopefully that would develop our personnel. So it's kind of a fusion where some of the places that I visit and the food I've had, we try to incorporate that in the menu. Luckily, we have allowed Ms. Bibi, the chef, to express herself on the menu as well. So she was given this empty basically, and she came up with some of the ideas I've had as well, and we kind of put them together. So hopefully people will enjoy the food. It's been very good. We haven't really had any negative feedback, but at the end of the day, I think when we open, that would be our true test. But the feedback that we've gotten from the people who were invited has been really good. I've seen a bright future here for Guyana, and obviously with what is about to happen and what's going on presently, I thought it was really important for me to invest here. I've also taken into consideration the people who have supported me over the years, who would come in the thousands at the stadium. Try to get them to experience some sort of stuff that I have experienced in my years of playing cricket when I toured. So hopefully this will provide that sort of environment, and they would enjoy it. We look forward to them tasting our food and getting some sort of positive feedback.
When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather and bridge reports along with sport. Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We're starting off with some cricket news. With COVID-19 hampering the usual preparation for all franchises for the upcoming Regional Super 50, the Guyana Jaguars captain Leon Johnson feels that the playing field is level, but those who are fit and mentally switched on will start in a positive manner. He spoke to Akim Green on Thursday.
In March 2020, Cricket West Indies had to stop the Regional 4-Day Championship with 8 rounds due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The only major tournament played in the Caribbean since was the Caribbean Premier League under the new biosecure environment method. The Regional Super 50 will be the first CWI organized tournament, and they too will adopt some strict guidelines. However, in the lead up to the tournament, all franchises had varying degrees of complication in accessing training or getting match time. Thus far, Barbados Pride and the Guyana Jaguars have suffered already, with players being recalled from the squads due to positive COVID-19 results. Speaking to Newsroom Sport on Wednesday, Johnson felt the short nature of the tournament, along with the fitness levels of teams, will be factors in who starts best.
Definitely. I think, the hiccups that guys would have had along the way. I've seen a team would have been hampered by a couple of COVID cases as well, and I'm sure training for these guys would have been hampered as well. I think, as you correctly said, the fitter teams and the teams with the guys who are in a better mental place are probably teams that will, start the tournament well. Having it being such a short tournament, 5 games in the round, if you look at that in a positive way, guys or teams actually who are in good form, it's a short time for them to keep that form.
After a fitness test on January 14th, the players were engaged in 3 practice matches at the newly renovated Le Bon Intention ground. The only Jaguars batsman to show consistently good form was opener Chandrapal Hemraj, and as skipper said, they wanted more from the main batters, but the lack of cricket played a factor.
It's unusual circumstances. A lot of the guys, would have been away from the game for a prolonged period of time. For some guys, 6-7 months. And yeah, it was difficult at the start. We started indoor and then we progressed. We progressed outdoor to train in small groups. We were just getting accustomed to the new way of doing things. But things obviously kicked on. We were able to train in larger groups and what's not. And the facility at LBI, you see the pitch. It's a bit docile. It's not what we would probably expect in Antigua, but nevertheless, it was in front of us. Right? We had the opportunity to play 3 practice games, and I know the scores obviously wouldn't reflect the talent and the potential of our side. But as I said, guys hadn't played cricket. Some guys hadn't played cricket for 10 months, and all. So you see those guys are experienced and confident enough that they know what they need to do, what's needed to perform at the next level. So I would like more preparation for myself and the team, but I think with what is available to us, we did our best.
The skipper said they cannot keep lamenting about not winning the title for 16 years, but need to have a fresh approach and mindset.
You can't keep looking back if you want to go forward, obviously. I know people always talk about the 16 years. Now it's 16 years that we haven't won a tournament. And, you don't want to keep lamenting on that. I always talk about the process. If we plan right and we execute well, we're playing against opposition that we've played against year in, year out. So, I think it comes down to execution. And if you execute well on the day, you'll be successful. I think, those big games, the knockout games and things like that, over the years, our batting has let us down. And I've said that more than once. I've said publicly as well. The bowlers have always held their own. But, it's time for the batters to make a conscious effort in those games.
Jaguars depart on Saturday and will play the first match against Pride on February 8th at the Coolidge Cricket Ground in Antigua. For the Newsroom, Akim Green.
Meanwhile, manager and assistant coach of the Guyana Jaguars, Shivnarine Chandapal, says the upcoming CG Insurance Super 50 Cup will not be an easy tournament for the 6 competing teams. With several of the region's top players available for the February 7 to 27 tournament in Antigua, Chandapal believes the teams would have to bring their A game to challenge for the title. A new champion would be crowned this year as Barbados Pride, Guyana Jaguars, Jamaica Scorpions, Leeward Islands Hurricanes, Trinidad and Tobago Red Force, and Windward Islands Volcanoes vie for the coveted title. The winners of the last tournament in 2019, West Indies emerging players, did not get a chance to defend their title in 2020 owing to COVID-19, but several players from that squad are representing the various franchises this season. Chandapal, who is back in Guyana and will depart with the Jaguars squad to Antigua on Saturday, spoke of Guyana's chances in the tournament.
Well, we've been preparing well. It's obvious we have to go out there and perform. Each individual pulling the weight, doing well, because all the teams right now, they all have the top players around. So it's not going to be an easy tournament. All the teams are strong. So anybody can beat anybody. So you have to go there and play well. You have to be on your game on that day. You got to bring a game. You can't any mistake, any slack up can cost your game. And you know the opposition you're playing. You have top players in some of these teams, so you can't take any chances. You got to get it up whenever you get the opportunity. Take it and go ahead with it and stay ahead in the game and make sure you drive it home.
This season, several notable West Indies players will participate in the tournament, including West Indies white ball skipper Kieran Pollard, Test captain Jason Holder, Roston Chase, Shimron Hetmeyer, Sheldon Cottrell, Hayden Walsh Jr., Nicholas Puran, and Andre Fletcher. Matches will be played at the two international venues in Antigua, the Coolidge Cricket Ground and the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. Fans can watch the matches live from the Coolidge Cricket Ground on ESPN Caribbean and matches live from the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium on CWI's website and YouTube channel. Guyana last won the regional 50-over title in 2005. Incidentally, Chandapal was captain when Guyana defeated Barbados in fading light in the KFC Cup final at the GCC ground border. Reporting for Newsroom, I am Avinash Ramzan. Still in cricket, Cricket West Indies has finalized a groundbreaking new 5-year deal with ESPN Plus for the exclusive media and digital rights in the United States to all West Indies international home matches and regional tournaments. The ESPN Plus partnership will feature live broadcast of every international West Indies home series, covering all T20 internationals, one-day internationals and test matches within the ICC Future Tours program. Commencing with the all-format tour of the Caribbean by Sri Lanka in March, ESPN Plus first year will feature series against South Africa, Australia and Pakistan in 2021, building to 5 home series in 2022, including tours by England and India. The new agreement also includes CWI's marquee regional 50-over tournament, the CG Insurance Super 50 Cup, which is also aired exclusively in the Caribbean by ESPN. The CG Insurance Super 50 Cup will be the first live cricket from the West Indies in the partnership, as the biggest regional rivalries and world-class players take center stage from February 7 to 27 in Antigua. Football news now. Banks DIH Limited has partnered with the Guyana Football Federation to provide water and energy drinks to the senior men's national team as it prepares for the 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifiers in March. Following the green light being given by the National COVID-19 Task Force, the domestic-based Golden Jaguars squad is currently in training at the GFF National Training Center at Providence, with a focus on rebuilding fitness following a prolonged period without competitive football. Banks DIH has contributed a supply of Powerade drinks and rainforest waters to support players and staff as part of national efforts to help Guyana succeed in its World Cup qualification run this year. In March, Guyana will face off against Trinidad and Tobago and the Bahamas in Group F of the first round of the CONCACAF qualification process. The Golden Jaguars will also play Puerto Rico and St. Kitts and Nevis, with only the team that finishes top of the group proceeding to the second round. Now, cricket development at West Demerara Secondary School has been given a major boost following the presentation of a large quantity of equipment on Thursday. More in this report. Some students and teachers gathered at the West Demerara Secondary School on Thursday morning to receive the equipment from representatives of the alumni. Presenting the equipment on behalf of the alumni was the former Guyana and West Indies cricketer Shivnarayan Chandapal, his son Tejnarayan Chandapal, Guyana Jaguars Super 50 selectee Akshaya Prasad, and Naveed Ali, an ex-student of the school and local coordinator of the alumni. The donation included cricket bats, batting and wicket-keeping pads, stumps, balls, helmets, gear bags, and protective equipment. Some computer supplies also formed part of what is an initial donation to the school from the alumni who are based in the United States of America and Canada. A beaming headmaster of the school, Harry Narain, was particularly pleased to receive the pieces of equipment, noting that the school not only has a vibrant cricket program, but students are active in other disciplines.
Our school, ladies and gentlemen, we have been producing very good cricketers. In 2016, West Demerara Secondary School reached the level of the finals in the Guyana on the 17 Guyana Cricket Board on the 17 competition. Unfortunately, we were beaten by Lower Quarantine in the finals. So West Demerara Secondary School has done extremely well in the field of cricket, and you need to applaud your school too. We have recently a boxer from the West Demerara Secondary School, Mark Crawford, who reached the level of the Caribbean Boxing Championship. He won gold in his category. And so West Dem has been doing well in the area of sports, or what we call extracurricular activities. On the other side, or if I may say, one of the best stories coming out of West Demerara Secondary School is our athlete Joanna Archer, who has excelled at nationals, at Inter-Guyana Games, at Commonwealth Games, at Carifta Games, Goodwill Games, and Miss Joanna Archer has excelled, and she is on a scholarship in the United States of America.
The alumni will soon make a second donation to the school in the form of a gas-powered power washer, reading machine, printers, computer supplies, footballs and volleyballs. Meanwhile, the former Guyana and West Indies captain, Shivnarain Chandapal, addressed the students on the need for them to have a balance in terms of academic pursuits and sport excellence. He urged the students to stay focused on achieving their goals and setting high standards for themselves. Reporting for Newsroom, I'm Avinash Ramzan. And finally in sport, the Guyana Motor Racing and Sports Club has confirmed the further postponement of the season opening endurance meet, which was scheduled for this Sunday at the South Dakota Circuit. The club, in a statement on its social media page, said maintenance works on the track, which caused an initial postponement, could not be completed within the expected time frame. A new date would be announced once the work is completed and the track is in a state to host high-level competition. As it is now, the track remains closed owing to the maintenance work. And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, Newsroom.gy, our Facebook page and Instagram. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for watching. Be safe. See you next time.